Virginia lawmakers have begun the 2010 General Assembly session, one that will see a lot of budget cuts. Governor Kane has cut $7 billion from the state's spending plan since 2008. But lawmakers who began work today must fill another $4 billion budget gap through 2012. Kane has proposed a mix of cuts, doing away with the hated car tax, and an increase in the state income tax. Both Republicans and Democrats have said tax increases aren't likely to win favor in tough economic times, so they have 60 days to come up with enough cuts to balance the budget. And joining us now to discuss the General Assembly session and more is JMU political analyst Dr. Bob Roberts. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Now, Kane will give his final State of the Commonwealth address tonight.
Right.
Republican Governor-elect Bob McDonnell will be sworn in on Saturday. What can we expect from Kane's speech tonight? What
Kane will say is, first of all, he's done a great job recruiting businesses to Virginia.
True?
He has. I mean, lots more businesses come to Virginia corporations, so the record of Virginia being the best state for business has been held up through the Kane administration. He will complain, I would say somewhat bitterly, that the state has not dealt with the transportation issue, that the roads are falling apart, the state doesn't have enough money, and therefore the state really needs to face up with that issue. And then I think he will discuss other issues like education that he's put a lot of money into. In other words, telling the legislature, don't go backward. In other words, if you make more cuts, you're going to destroy core services, and you really can't do that.
Now, is his speech that relevant since it appears what he proposed, which was an income tax hike, although he also proposed eliminating the car tax, but he proposed an income tax hike which would
prevent further cuts.
Yeah. But it appears that that income tax hike will not go through.
Right.
So is his speech tonight really relevant?
It's relevant to the Senate. The Democrats picked up a seat in the Senate last night, which gives them a little margin. In other words, will he be able to persuade the Senate to fight the House and to fight the governor? How much backbone do they have in terms of to confront the governor and confront the House and not go along with more serious cuts?
Because the Senate is now 22 Democrat, 18 Republican,
right.
So a little bit different than
right.
the federal government where all three are Democratic. Here you only have one that's Democratic.
Right. And so it's going to be very interesting whether McDonald and the House can get a couple of those senators to defect. The real issue is what are the Republicans going to propose to how to deal with the gap? And they haven't come up with anything. Somewhat surprisingly, Governor McDonald is not going to submit an amended budget, which he announced yesterday, which puts the entire burden on the House and Senate conferees to come up with a budget plan. They may not. We've had that happen once before in Governor Warner's period, where it took until April to come up with a budget. So it's going to be very difficult unless McDonald can persuade a couple of Democratic senators to defect to come up. It may be very difficult to come up with a budget within that 60 days.
So why do you think McDonnell is not entering the fray?
I think because he has nothing to gain from it. Because if he makes cuts, it allows all those interest groups to come up and yell and scream even more, where it's a little easier to come up with the conferees to come up and then push it through the legislature at 12 o'clock at night.
Well, everybody's been complaining, though, about these horrible cuts, but it sounds like that there are going to have to be even bigger cuts or more cuts if they don't go along with Kane's tax hike.
Unless you go and sell the ABC stores, which can come up with maybe $500 to $1 billion on a short-term fix, and borrow a lot of money to cover some of the expenses. So it's possible to, in a sense, postpone the pain to later on if you borrow money, bond, which has been some suggestion, and sell ABC stores. That would reduce probably half the pain.
Okay, but again, the General Assembly, it's going to be left up to them to figure this out.
Absolutely.
And then to see if the House and Senate can agree.
Absolutely. They may not right away agree to it.
All right. Well, we'll obviously follow this as it moves along. JMU political analyst Dr. Bob Roberts, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And speaking of tonight, you can watch Governor Kane's speech tonight right here on WHSV News 3. Our coverage starts at 7 p.m. In addition, you can watch it live online at WHSV.com. His speech is expected to last about 40 minutes. And now let's send it to